Are you tired of losing mining ships, whether it be to gankers or to rats, forgetting to dock, any countless number of things? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about mining safely, talk about how you can avoid so much and never lose a ship ever again. With that being said, we're going to go over a few fits, and I'm going to give you my recommendations on kind of what I've been using lately in nullsec and what you could potentially use in highsec if you're still there to kind of be a harder target and whatnot. So in nullsec right now, I'm primarily using expedition frigates. They are great. They are nimble, they're evasive, but the use of the improved cloak on the endurance or the covert cloak on the prospect allow you to cloak in place when something comes into local and just kind of get out of sight and out of mind. This is a normal high yield prospect fit that I've got going on right here. So Cobra Ops cloak, this is very important because it allows us to cloak in place, and we can also leave grid while remaining cloaked if need be. We're also using the modulated deep core strip miner 2s. This allows us to put crystals on to get more yield, and then our lows are just full of just mining upgrades, because when we have the option to just cloak and get out, then we can kind of afford to have a lot of yield on this thing. Then we have things like the afterburner, which helps us get in position, do our bookmarks a little bit safer. But the whole rule behind this ship is that you're watching local. You can even use this ship in high sec. If you're watching D-scan, you're watching local, you see something come on grid with you, cloak and get out of there. The likelihood of you losing this ship when you're paying attention to just a couple of things around you is very, very unlikely. Go ahead and switch over to our endurance fit. This one's a little bit different. It's got some utility on here. Now we do also have an improved cloak. This allows us to cloak in place. We can't warp when we're cloaked, but if we see something coming our way, we can get at least off of overview here. We also have a core probe launcher too, where we can look at for cosmic signatures, check and see if there's wormholes in our system, or it's just a nice utility piece. And then this one is fitted for ice, so I normally take this endurance out to do ice. And the same principles apply here. And we have these sensor boosters here with ECCM scripts. This is a very traditional kind of wormhole thing. If you put these on and you activate these will make you harder to scan down with combat probes. So right here you can see our targeting, our sensor strength is 10. So the higher we actually have this number, the harder it is, or the more we can avoid detection by probes. So it's at a 10 right now. So if we activate both of these, it goes up to 35. So you'll see this a lot in wormhole space, where you'll activate a sensor booster, usually 2 of them with ECCM scripts, and it just makes it to where if they have combat probes out, it takes them a little bit longer to kind of get a lock on you. And we also have like the yield stuff here in the lows, the Ice Harvester 2 upgrades for yield, because we do have the ability to kind of cloak in place. Now, the other thing that I need to mention about these two ships, the Prospect and Endurance, they're very, very fast. Their line times are very fast. So even if you don't cloak to get out of danger, even if like a tackle ship lands on grid with you, you can get off grid really, really quick, as opposed to like a Mackinac or a Retriever or any of those other ships, mining barges or exhumers. Those can be a little bit slower to kind of get out of the way. I primarily use these as my daily drivers because now in nullsec, all the anomalies for different types of materials are in different systems. So I do spend a lot of time gating through nullsec looking for what I need. These ships just outperform like crazy. Let's talk about some other things. Probably one of the bigger ships that I would probably recommend for high sec would be your exhumer, would be a skiff. Skiffs can be really high EHP. We don't even have to go full yield on this. We can have things like a damage control. We can have multiple multi-spectrum shield hardeners on here, large shield extenders. In most cases, if a ganker is looking at a skiff that's 109 or more EHP, it's not really worth the engagement. Now, I still advise, even no matter what mining ship you're in, always watch D-scan, always watch local, and regardless of how much tank you have or whatever tricks you might have up your sleeve, priority one should just be like warping off to a safe if you see a bunch of gankers come on grid. If you see a bunch of battleship rats in nullsec that your ship can't really handle or take down fast enough, bring in something else to take those down. There's no reason to kind of stay and hang out there and all of that stuff. The Mackinac is another ship that I've used in HiSec a lot too. I even use it in Nulsec. Like I said, the Mackinacs, the Retrievers, the Skiffs, the Procurers, all those, the Hulk and the Coveter, they're a little bit slower to get off grid. So that's one thing you have to kind of keep in mind. The more yield you try to chase, the more at risk you are, because you don't have that ability to quickly align and get off into a safe bookmark. But in a lot of nullsec systems, you're able to kind of see danger coming from an intel channel. There are still other things that you have to consider, like people who filament in, which can be instant and unexpected, or if there is a new wormhole that just popped up and somebody went right through it, then you can see somebody come into local and kind of dodge intel and stuff. That's why I always try to like keep up to date on all of the cosmic signatures that are in system. Make sure we're assessing the situation in terms of like if there are wormholes in the system we're trying to mine in, or in the adjacent systems around it. So those are just a few examples. And like just like a Hulk fit, let's go over here. I have actually a Hulk sitting here in nullsec. These have yield, it's set up for ice right now, has all yield in the lows, no damage control, but we do have some tank on here in the form of compact multi-spectrum shield hardeners and shield extenders. 35,000 EHP is nowhere near what like a skip is, but this is yield, right? We're chasing yield with this, and we just know going out in a ship like this that we need to be even more reactive to potential incoming threats and trying to get off grid as soon as possible. Always keep that in the back of your mind. The more yield you try to stack, the more more conscious you're at to be for what's going on around you and everything. Another few pointers that I can talk about here too is just like going off and kind of expanding on the situational awareness thing. Staying aligned when mining is ideal. Most of the time when I'm out in Hulks or Mackinac or something that's not like an expeditionary frigate, then I'm drag mining. I have a porpoise or an orca or even a rorqual in some cases, and I have all those slower ships approaching that lead ship, and that lead ship is basically always aligned to our exit bookmark. So when something does happen, we can just warp and take everybody off instantly. So staying aligned means that you are moving in a positive direction. You can't just like be at 0 meters a second and facing a direction, because you still would have to align and speed up. So whenever you hear somebody talk about staying aligned, they're almost always meaning you're constantly, even at a slow rate, traveling towards your exit pause and everything. The other one, we'll reiterate, use D-scan. In HiSec, you're constantly hitting V. You're constantly looking at what's going on D-scan, looking for local spikes. And by spikes, I mean you see a large number of people coming to local unexpectedly. You're looking at D-scan. Are those catalysts, or is it a freight crew coming through? You always want to know kind of what's happening and why. And then like watch local. You want to look for suspicious players, any suspects, criminals. That can usually mean bad things are potentially on its way. Another thing you do is set standings. I set standings for corporations and groups like Safety and a bunch of known gankers. Set them at like horrible standings so they show up very prominently on your overview and in local and all that stuff. Just use every tool at your disposal in those overview settings to try to like give yourself as much information as possible when you need it. You can also use other tools, third-party tools like .land to see how many pod kills or ship kills have been in a system over a 24-hour period, or even over an hour period, or even look at like Zkill and see if a certain group ganks in the system you're in right now, and like who are the usual suspects, so to speak. And also, we're going to talk about like system selection too. Like not every system is safe to mine in. You're not going to mine in very close to like Jita or Amar or like any sort of trade hub. You want to try to avoid those. Usually the good rule of thumb is the further you are away from a trade route or a trade hub, the safer you generally are, because a lot of gankers need to refit their catalyst assaults after doing a suicide gank. They want to like minimize downtime, so they try to, their area of operation tends to be like 10 or so jumps from a hub like Jita, And also like bottleneck systems like Udemy or something like that, where there are known gate camps and stuff. You want to try to stay away from that stuff as well. And just use bookmarks. I can't stress it enough. Use bookmarks as much as you can, both as using exit bookmarks to get out of harm's way, and also using bookmarks around belts and stuff or around anomalies to get you immediately close to the rock or the asteroid you need to mine, so you can get those lasers on as soon as possible. But also being away from zero. Like even when I'm mining in nullsec, I'm never warping zero to an ice anomaly and then mining there. I'll usually go out there with like covert op ship, look for the rock that's furthest away from zero, the zero warp in for that anomaly, and I'll bookmark that and I'll mine there. Because just in case there's somebody that comes to that anomaly, they're going to land at zero. I give myself the benefit of distance with that. Also, and this might be counterintuitive to a lot of what you see on my channel, a lot of my stuff is about solo mining, but also not mining alone is a good strategy too. Even if you are mining by yourself, if there's more people other than yourself on an asteroid belt, that strength in numbers can help too. Just because that's a lot of potential targets in space rather than you being the only one. But also just like for going into talking about rats and like, battleship, NPC rats and stuff. If you're out there with like a command ship and a bunch of hulks, they all have drones. You can have all of those drones take down those battleship rats and stuff and not really interrupt your mining, as opposed to being in like a prospect or endurance where you have to, get off grid and then bring something else in to kill those rats, and it kind of like gives you a little bit of a pause there. So there can be strength in numbers even if you're solo mining. And then we'll just more just like knowing your escape plan. Always have an escape plan. Think about yourself in terms of like, if a certain thing happens, what is my course of action? If like gankers, simulate the situation for yourself. If gankers come into local, if I see a local spike, what is my first thing I'm going to do? Warp off, do whatever. Have a game plan for any potential situation that might come in handy. And also, if you're in high sec, always check the agency for the pirate strongholds. All you have to do is go in here to the agency. You can have like a little like bookmark down here at the bottom. I usually have one bookmarked as well. But you go in here to encounters, and there's a pirate stronghold section in here. If there's one in your system or nearby, you'll be able to see it. It'll light up here. Never ever mine in a system that has a pirate stronghold, because those rats are just built differently, and you want to try to avoid that. That's why it's nice having like a backup system, like either a secondary or a tertiary system that you can mine in. So if one is populated by a pirate stronghold, then you have a backup option for that day. But that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. There is no reason to lose a mining ship as long as you're paying attention to your situational awareness is good to go. Using the right ship for the right area, knowing what the mechanics of the game are, prioritizing things like EHP, and maybe not going after max yield. And if you are going after max yield, there's nothing wrong with going max yield, but chances are it's safer to drag mine than it is to just kind of like warp a bunch of hulks and stuff to anomaly and just kind of sit there and hope for the best. But hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.